Picture this. It's the 13th century, you're in the Irish countryside, when you suddenly hear a loud dog barking through the hills. Do you A. Run towards it, B. Start barking back, C. Become quiet before it barks 3 times, or D. Turn around and run away? By the end of this video, you'll have the answer to this and more. Tassandra O'Hara, element nature, zodiac Leo, July 28th, blood type O. When Tassandra was 14, she lived in Ireland with her family. Her father was a family patron and had recently moved away from his grandmother's old teachings of fairy magic and the good people in favor of more socially acceptable Catholicism. Tassandra, on the other hand, still valued the old ways. Perhaps it was rebellion, or just an unwillingness to submit to the control of Catholicism on women. But how were the old ways different? What did Catholicism change? Thankfully, through Andrew, I've been able to get a hold of some of Tassandra's notes. Let's go over them, shall we? Now, it's all in very old Irish text. Tassandra couldn't write in English, but her penmanship in Irish is beautiful. These look like letters or journal entries. Here she says, in the time of our elders, our women could own land if they wanted to, even run a business. She could leave her husband if he was unfaithful, impotent, or cruel. Many of us were poets, judges, physicians, and a few of us were even lucky enough to be druidesses. Some ruled as queens in their own right, or acted as tribal matriarchs, such as Queen Maeve, the sovereignty goddess. Queen Maeve was the queen of Connacht in the Ulster cycle of Irish mythology. The earliest renditions of these stories is from the 12th century, with manuscripts found all the way into the 15th century. The Morrigan was also a popular part of those stories, and some of them involve Maeve as an aspect of the Morrigan as well. She then goes on to note powerful warrior women like Scacha, who trained Cú Chulainn, and her sisterly rival Aoife, with whom she was at war. So Cú Chulainn trained under Scacha in the Isle of Skye, the same place McTeague is from. I love this part where she says, if only she'd taught Cú Chulainn to have half a brain, he wouldn't have killed the son he forced Aoife to have. So in the myth of Cú Chulainn, he's trained to be Scacha's champion in the war against her sister Aoife, in which Aoife is also the aggressor. Aoife battles Cú Chulainn, and she shatters his sword. So Cú Chulainn then distracts Aoife, telling her that her prized horses and chariot have fallen off a cliff. Shocked by this, she's thrown off guard and captured. Under threat of death, Aoife surrenders with the condition that she stops attacking Scacha and bears Cú Chulainn a son. And if that wasn't bad enough, here's where he gets stupid. So Cú Chulainn leaves for Ireland while Aoife is pregnant, but gives her a golden thumb ring to give to his child when he comes of age. However, Cú Chulainn also imposed 3 prohibitions on his child. 1, he cannot turn back once he starts his journey. 2, he must never refuse a challenge. And 3, he can never tell anyone his name. So this boy named Connla only appears again in the story titled The Tragic Death of Aoife's Only Son. I know, the title gives it all away, right? Connla travels to Ireland in search of his father and encounters Condair, son of Eku. Although Connla refuses to give his own name, Condair attempts to get him to meet with the Uliad, the Irish High Kings. Connla only asks whether the Uliad would like to fight him in single combat one at a time, or as a group, also telling Condair that he's not worth fighting. Conall Cernach was the Uliad's champion hero. He rose to the challenge of Connla, telling him that the Uliad will not be shamed while he was alive. Connla slung a stone that knocked Conall off his feet. Stealing his sword, he sent Conall in shame back to his kings. Enraged by this, Cú Chulainn himself came out to meet the new warrior. Connla could not turn back in his journey, and he could not refuse a challenge, and so he readied to face Cú Chulainn in battle. Cú Chulainn's wife, Emer, recognized the situation and tried to warn him. Don't fight him. He's the only son of Aoife. But Cú Chulainn rebuked her and said that heroic deeds are not performed with a woman's assistance. Oh, didn't he have some nerve? This dork-ass loser was taught everything he knows by a woman! So of course, he doesn't listen. He fights his own son, who refuses to identify himself, because of the dumbass rules that Cú Chulainn imposed. Connla started winning against Cú Chulainn in hand-to-hand combat, so the cowardly Cú Chulainn resorted to using his Gaebolga, a special spear whose use was taught only to him by the previous owner, Scacha. So, not without a woman's assistance, jerk. Cú Chulainn kills Connla, and doesn't recognize until afterwards that the golden thumb ring is on his hand. Turn around and then Cú Chulainn tries to grieve his dying son. What an idiot. So let's look at some more of Tassandra's notes. So the church came and talked to our Da. For years now, the monasteries and elite families have all gone the Norman religion, away from Brehon law. Maybe he wanted to be a part of those elites, but like that would ever happen. I probably will live the rest of my life wondering, what makes an old man go against the best interests of his children, especially his daughters? But at this point, going off into the woods to live as a wild woman seems more preferable. The church either reframes or outright oppresses our true gods. They call our Tuatha fallen angels or demons, historic ancestors with whom I share common blood. They've called Morrigan a daughter of Lilith and likened her to succubi and demons, to our Banshee and Babanshi. They seek to punish our Sincha, calling us liars and temptresses, but I won't stop speaking the truth of these hills and the old ways. They can call it sin, but the only sin I see is showing up to someone else's door telling them how to think, feel, and believe. The church have their swordsmen blocking access to the mounds. These places where we worshipped the Tuatha are now said to be filled with demons and portals to hell. I'd like to show them what hell looks like one of these days. I took a book of scriptures off of one of those priests today. I wanted to see the words for myself. Wouldn't you know it, it's in the Norman language. Frustrated, I shouted at the gobshite. You expect us to read this and it's not even in Irish? He gave me a look like he saw me gnawing on a hare's leg. He said, no one expects for a woman to read it. Just be silent and do as your father says. The balls on him. I'd have yanked them off had he been on arm's reach. Damn. So the church wants women silent. I can't abide. This is getting worse here by the day. Our neighbor's husband died. She was our midwife. Too old to remarry, they said. So they want her to join a cloister? Just for being a widow, they want her cloistered. Cut off from the rest of us. When she refused, they called her a witch. And now we don't know where she is. Well, cloisters around this time were places where nuns and monks lived their day-to-day lives. Around the time that Christianity started to overtake Brehon law, widows, midwives, herbalists, and the like were either inducted into the cloister and forced to convert to Christianity, or they were labeled as witches and arrested. Additionally, women lost their rights to own land or businesses or any property unless it was tied to her husband or another male guardian such as an uncle or father. Tassandra lived during a pivotal moment for a lot of rural Irish villages. The Council of Nimes refers to 4 religious council meetings held in the south of France. They took place in 394, 886, 1096, and 1284 respectively. Usually these councils were called to discuss changes to a religious doctrine, and part of what happened during this time was the complete forbidding of women in positions of power in the church. Apparently, a female priesthood was considered unclean. Along with this was also imposed restrictions on women's literacy. We were discouraged from reading religious texts, especially scripture, under suspicion that private reading might lead to heresy or immodesty. Even owning books as a woman was condemned. Christians would often cite 1 Corinthians 14:34. That said, let a woman be silent in churches, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church. But prior to this, women were mostly the ones who upheld oral storytelling, called Sincha. They were considered a position similar to, well, bards. I met a man today at the mounds. I'd gone up there early, hoping no one would be out before sunrise. It was a risk I had to take. He was dressed in a red tunic, which was smart, since the Fae don't often like the color red. But he was Norman. He came in with the knights. I didn't rightly trust him. But then he asked me if these hills were made out of respect for our ancestors, and so I began to tell him our stories. He listened. He sat there silent and smiling through every single one I had to tell him, about the Tuatha, Cushi, the Puka, and the Banshee. He said it inspired him, and he put it all into a song. And as he played, I could tell he understood. His notes carried the words of my grandmother. His magic, too, was the old kind. Hold on, is she talking about when she met Matthias? Oh wow. I swear I've had enough, she writes next. My father received a fine, all because I left cream out for the cut she. It's Samhain after all. What's he expect me to do? I cannot live like this. If this is the way my family, my town, my country is headed, I want out as soon as I find an excuse. Maybe that Norman bard would understand. Wow, yeah, she's definitely talking about Matthias here. So they met not only at the height of her troubles at home, but because he was actually in the company of the groups trying to Christianize her home. It's no wonder they all separated. Could it have been that the initial falling out between Matthias and Sir John involved him rejecting the Greco-Roman faith in favor of the love he found in Irish hillside? It seems likely. Well, now we've come to a part of Tassandra's journal where she wrote down everything she knew about the Fae. I'd like to share a bit of that with you. Entry 1. The Cú. The Cú make their homes in the cleft of rocks and roam the moors at night in the winter months. Cú is a silent hunter, but its bark is terrifying. It can be heard for miles, even at sea, and those who hear the Cú barking must reach safety by the third bark or be overcome with terror and die of fright. Warding against the Cú can be fairly simple. Carry an iron charm and never wander the hills alone. To appease the Cú, if you hear its bark, be silent and get away quickly. If the third bark you hear, it's already too late. Entry 2. The Banshee. The Banshee is the spirit of a woman with long, flowing hair. She may be small, between a foot to 4 feet high, or even unnaturally tall. Often she'll be seen wearing a gray cloak over a green dress, with eyes constantly weeping. Or she may be dressed all in white with red hair and a ghastly complexion. Her hair is always long, and she may be seen combing it while she weeps and wails. Her purpose is that of an omen, for her wails signify that a death will soon find one of the noble families. There are no known ways to ward against the Banshee, though pleading may make the passing more pleasant. To appease the Banshee, treat her presence with reverence. She's often likely an ancestor. Entry 3. The Banshee. These women are especially dangerous. Pale, dark-haired, exceptionally beautiful, with glowing green eyes and lips like blood. Their main source of food are foolish men who wander the woods at night beyond the hedge. They gather, usually in groups of 3, dancing and singing among the trees. Those who are lured to dance will do so until they're too weary to stand, and once they pass out, the Banshee will feed. Carrying iron is a potential ward, but also avoid dancing with strange women at night. There is no way to appease the Banshee. Avoid her at any cost. Entry 4. The Ketshi. The Ketshi looks a bit like a Kellis cat, all black with a white spot on their chest. The Ketshi can be seen mimicking a human, which may be the only way to tell its true nature. Standing on 2 legs, dancing, and answering riddles are common behaviors of the Ketshi. Ketshi will appear after someone's died, but before they can be buried, and tries to steal that person's soul. To ward against Ketshi, watch over the newly dead body vigilantly for 3 days. Light fires away from the body as the warmth will draw the cat, but also tell riddles, play music, or make other merriment to distract it. An offering of cream or fish on Samhain is known to appease this fairy. Entry 5. The Puka. This one is especially important as I've seen him once myself. The Puka is a shape changer, though he most often appears as a black stallion shooting flames from his nostrils. He can also take the form of a goat, a rabbit, a man, or some combination thereof. His presence can be a bane or for boon, but he's always mischievous, not inherently evil. The Puka is known to abduct a rider of his choosing, especially during Samhain. Foolish people who ride the Puka are in for a terrifying night, although he won't drown you like the Kelpie. Warding against the Puka is as easy as carrying a bit of silver or iron, and speaking kind words to the good people over roads, especially at a crossing. Leave fruit or milk near hedgerows or stiles, and you might just appease him. Entry 6. The Gillydew. Spirit of the birch trees. No one who respects nature has need to fear the Gillydew. He is gentle, shy, and covered in leafy green, a friend to those who respects his forest home. He usually appears to lost children and leads them back to safety, should they get lost in the hedge. A common tale is that changelings will often become Gillydew as they get older, and their fey nature is revealed. Since the Gillydew is a benevolent spirit, there's no need to ward against him. He is only angered by those who deserve it. It's wise to leave a gift of food near birch trees, and show respect to all plant life, in order to keep them appeased. Entry 7. Karanak. A beast much like a serpent that frequents the waterways, lakes, and rivers. These are revered fae, the guardians and messengers of the Tuatha, keepers of the ley lines that druids and druidesses follow. As such, they are treated with reverence for their association with the otherworld, sacred wells, and our ancestral power. You still might anger the Karanak if you aren't careful. Avoid desecrating sacred springs or rivers as a ward. They can be appeased through storytelling and rituals, or sacrifices of bread or silver into the water. Aside from stories about specific fae, there's also a number of items and rituals that can ward or appease the fae, generally speaking. Iron is especially prevalent, especially cold iron, a type of iron that's never been heated by fire. It disrupts fae magic. Horseshoes, blades, and charms were often carried for good luck or as a fairy ward. Houses made of iron nails were said to create a natural barrier. Salt, I feel like that's a pretty commonly known one too. Salt purifies a space and blocks spiritual intrusion. This was used near portals like doors, windows, and even around cradles in order to discover or protect from changelings. Carrying a bit of pocket salt was also advised. Rowan wood, or moon ash, is a protection against enchantments and spirits. This could be carved into charms, trinkets, or carried as a walking stick. Usually with a red thread as a sign of druidic protection. Red thread or cloth would often create a protective field and could even ward off curses. These would be tied around children's wrists, livestock, and fairy trees. Red has been considered a strong anti-fairy color. Yeah, like, imagine then how scary a red fairy is. A mixture of St. John's wort, mugwort, clover, and dill were considered anti-fairy herbs. I suppose that's why Kiki doesn't much care for pickles. These herbs would be hung near beds, especially cradles, and mugwort was a common incense. It was also known that fae can't cross running water, so a trickling stream or rushing river, or even just the act of pouring water from one container to another or onto the ground, could provide temporary protection. And also, carrying a bit of steel or bread protects travelers who may be alone. Save the bread as an offering, but use a steel knife as protection. Appeasing the fae was easy. Just be mindful of the things we say or objects we could keep with us, such as offerings of milk or cream. Dairy was a special delicacy for the good people. Leaving it on the doorstep or hearth could bring blessings from benevolent creatures. On Samhain, honey, cakes, or butter were used to ensure favor and safe passage. These were also common treats during guising rituals. Shiny coins or trinkets could be left in fairy trees or cairns, as these gifts would be seen as a sign of respect. Similarly, oats and mead were related to agricultural gratitude and seasonal rites. But the most important thing to remember is that the fae abhor mess and irreverence. So keeping the fairy mounds clean and not desecrating nature should always be top priority. And now let's look at ways we can speak to the fae. Never say thank you. Yeah, I know. I know! Instead say, I appreciate it, or offer a gift or blessing in return. Saying thank you implies a debt or imbalance that they will collect on later. Never share your full name. A name is power. To give a fae your full true name is to give them authority over your being. Never say, I promise, or make any oath. Promises are binding magical contracts to the fae. Even accidentally breaking one can result in curses, madness, or even abduction or death. Speak of them in euphemisms. Calling them the good people, the fair folk, or the neighbors is advised. Avoid saying fairy directly, as it's considered disrespectful. Avoid compliments without spitting. Spitting? Okay, I guess complimenting a child or animal could attract fairy jealousy unless followed by a warding gesture like spitting or touching iron. Wow. Yeah, I think we learned a lot today covering this, and I'm going to be using Tassandra's notes to keep myself safe the next time I'm around any fae. Tell me down in the comments if you have any further fae wisdom you'd like to share, or maybe what your favorite fae creature is. I'm glad we were able to meet again this week, and I'll talk to you all later. Art for this week was by Shalak on Fiverr. I'll put a link to their business down in the description so you can commission a great artwork like this from him personally. His realistic pieces are just the best, and it really helps bring our story to life. Patreon is our main hub for all things involved with Tales of Atonement, and our patron support helps us produce our episodes faster and with more consistency. But what's in it for you? From there you can find our Tales of Atonement Discord server, art, music, comics, as well as exclusive viewership for upcoming scripts. Supporting us on Patreon is what shows us we're part of a growing community of artists, actors, history buffs, and storytellers that have become fascinated with our characters these past couple of years. This is our passion project we've put our hearts and souls into over 20 years, and your support really helps keep that flame alive. Right now, a big thanks to Pammy Poo, Heinrich28, Shadow Fox, Charles Tam, Arya Gamari, Jace Morland, and Lunder Lumen. And of course, everyone who joins us each week. At the very least, I hope you'll like this video, subscribe, and ring my bell if it really resonated with you. And I'll see you again next week. Many a Mickle, Maximuckle.